Hello. How are y'all doing today? Kind of a big crowd here. It's for a good reason. My name is Keith Plunkett. I am honored to have been chosen by Senator Ted Cruz to serve alongside Chris McCain as co-chairman of the state's efforts to elect our next president of the United States. We're about to put all of you to work. All of it. Look, I just wanted to say, and I'll be brief, I got into politics about 15 or so years ago just because I'm just in community service. I just wanted to be that guy who didn't always complain, but actually helped a little bit too. And we need more of that, and we see that every day. It's growing. It's growing. It's growing. And so for me, all I wanted was to find people who believed in honor and integrity. People who not only knew what they stood for, but why they stood for it, and were willing to actually go out and act on that principle, or those principles. Of course, we know where Senator Ted Cruz stands on that type of thing. He's got those in spades. And so does my friend here, who I'm able to serve as co-chair with. It's time in Mississippi for us to rise up again. Let's do it. That's right. We were the tip of the spear last year, and unfortunately it got taken away.
Yeah.
We'll make the point. We'll make the point in 2016. From this guy, because I think he wants to speak. Please welcome Senator Chris McCain. I ever told you how much I love DeSoto County? We've been talking about that the whole way down here. I said, what percent of DeSoto County? I said only 73. I'm sure you'll do much better. It is an honor and a privilege to be back up here. We are here today continuing that same fight that we started last year. It takes time to build foundations. It takes time to make adjustments. Senator Ted Cruz has been fighting for you in Washington, D.C. And he's saying the same things that we're all saying. He knows how we feel. He knows what's in our hearts. Senator Cruz is a man of principle. Isn't he? Yes. Now, there are men and women running for president right now who have just lately decided to be men and women of principle. And there's something to be said, I suppose, for speaking truth to power. But some people have been speaking truth to power for years, haven't they? What do we want in our politicians? Honesty, integrity. Here's one. If you're honorable and you're a person of integrity, won't your positions be consistent? Consistency. Senator Ted Cruz has been a consistent champion for conservatism since the day he went to the United States Senate. And he stands with you today. Tupelo was excited. I anticipate that Donald Franks, South Haven's here, Hernando, and all of DeSoto County will be here today to make this worth this while. Now, don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. He's doing press first, okay? But he's going to be here in a moment. And we have to influence the structure one of a couple of ways. We can win elections, but it's very difficult because when you run against incumbents, you run against their machine, and you run against all the money they bring to bear. So we can raise money for our candidates, we can win those seats and move forward with structural change slowly, or we can allow term limits to give us the ultimate structural change. You know, Jefferson would have said, look, he wanted a revolution every 18 or 20 years. We don't need a political, physical revolution. We need a political revolution of thought, of dissipation. I think we would have enjoyed that, and I think that's the structural reform. All right, more history. Thank you. Thank you. You guys have no idea what you mean. And I go to these places and I see these faces, and it's almost emotional because it's like coming home to a family reunion. And we respect the decision of the voters, and we respect what happened, but we know that God's in control, and the future is going to be bright for conservatives in Mississippi. Are there any more questions before he comes in? Are we ready? We're ready. All right, let's do this then. He's there. Hear me one time. Look at me for a second. Come on. We got to get fired up for this, all right? We have had enough Barack Obamas in Washington, D.C. We've had enough Harry Reid's in Washington, D.C. We've had enough Mitch McConnell's in Washington, D.C. Change. It's time for people of character and of principle, and this man coming into the door right now is that man. One more thing, I want to hear it really loud this time. Help me introduce the next president of the United States of America, Senator Cruz.
God bless the great state of Mississippi. Let me say thank you to our... The first Democratic debate is going to consist of Hillary Clinton and the Chipotle clerk. Now that's actually not fair. We can't forget about Bernie Sanders. So now the Democratic field consists of a wild-eyed socialist with ideas that are dangerous for America and the world,
if you want an autograph,
and Bernie Sanders. And it looks like the Democrats, they're not even going to have a debate. They're moving it later and later, September, October, November. I think they may move it to 2017. Actually, they had planned an early debate. The problem was the debate invitation was emailed to Hillary. Let me thank you all for being here. Absolutely. We are here, all of us, because America is in crisis. We're here because we love this nation, and right now today we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. We're seeing our constitutional rights under assault from Washington each and every day. And America has receded from leadership in the world, and the world is getting much more dangerous every day. And yet I'm here today with a word of hope and encouragement and exhortation. I want to tell you that all across Mississippi and all across this entire country, people are waking up. They realize we can't keep doing what we're doing. We're going to change course, and we're going to get back to the principles that made America great. I'm here to tell you that help is on the way. So I want to ask everyone here to listen to what my wife said, because I always listen to what my wife said. I want to take a minute to introduce, number one, Heidi Cruz, who is beautiful, and brilliant, brilliant and an amazing businesswoman and a phenomenal mom, and she's also my best friend in the entire universe. And we also want to introduce our precious angels. This is Catherine, she's 4. And this is Caroline, who's 7. She's feeling uncharacteristically shy today. But they are the joys of our lives, and I'll tell you, on this bus tour, the 2 of them have been bouncing off the walls, having more fun. And we are thrilled to be with you in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And now I want to ask everyone to look forward. To look forward to January 2017. If I'm elected president, let me tell you what I intend to do on my first day in office. The first thing I intend to do in office is rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional executive action. President Obama likes to say he has a phone and he has a pen. Well, you live by the pen, you die by the pen. And my pen has an eraser. But sadly, the corruption hasn't been limited just to the White House. It has pervaded every aspect of the federal government, and we have seen in particular the Department of Justice that has become the most partisan, lawless Department of Justice we've ever seen. The second thing I intend to do on my first day in office is instruct the Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood. And to prosecute any and all criminal conduct by that organization. The administration of justice is supposed to be nonpartisan, blind to party or ideology. The only loyalty at the Department of Justice should be to the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. And we are going to restore integrity to the United States Department of Justice. The third thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the Department of Justice and the IRS and every other federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends today. You know, many of us are familiar with the Little Sisters of the Poor. Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic charity that devotes the time and energy of nuns who've taken vows of poverty to caring for the poor and the elderly. Right now today, the Obama administration is litigating against the Little Sisters of the Poor, trying to impose millions of dollars of fines on the Little Sisters in order to force the nuns to pay for abortion-inducing drugs and others. Now let me give you a real simple rule of thumb. If you're litigating against nuns, you've probably done something wrong. In January 2017, instead of receiving a legal summons from the Obama Justice Department, the Little Sisters of the Poor will receive in the mail notification that the case against them has been dismissed. Y'all Y'all are making it real hard to talk when you're giving those onion rings out there. Wow, those look good. I am a Texan, and is there any food on earth that isn't better deep fried? The fourth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal. The threat of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons is the single greatest national security threat facing the United States of America. A couple of weeks ago, I observed, if this deal goes through, the Obama administration will become the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. Well, in response to that, a week ago, President Obama, traveling abroad to Africa, took time out of his busy schedule to attack me directly for saying such a thing. I do so hate to dismay the man. But he said that was ridiculous to say. That rhetoric was too much, it was too far. You can't say such a thing. Now, sadly, it wasn't just Obama, it was Republicans too. Mitt Romney sent out a tweet to the world and said, Cruz has gone too far, it's over the line, you cannot use that rhetoric.
They use worse.
And then, sadly, Jeb Bush echoed those same comments, saying, easy now, don't say such things, ratchet it back a little bit, let's not talk about that. Let me give you a very simple principle. The truth isn't rhetoric. And you know, in the entire course of attacking me, President Obama didn't actually dispute any of the substance of what I said. Here are the facts. Fact number one. Iran is today the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Fact number two. If this deal goes through, over $100 billion will flow into Iran. Fact number three. If that happens, billions of those dollars will go directly to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to radical Islamic terrorists throughout the world, and those jihadists will use those billions to murder Americans, to murder Israelis, and to murder Europeans. If President Obama doesn't like the rhetoric of his administration becoming the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism, there's an easy solution. Stop financing radical Islamic terrorism. The fifth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is begin the process of moving the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, the once and eternal capital of Israel. Now, a lot of presidential candidates have made that promise, both Republicans and Democrats.
But you're going to do it.
And what ends up happening is they get to the White House, and their team comes in and they say, you know, if we do that, there'll be a lot of people in the Middle East unhappy with us.
So what?
You know, if you hadn't noticed, they're already pretty unhappy with us. Let me tell you what I think is the single biggest difference between me and the other fine gentlemen that stood on that stage in Cleveland is that with me, you know what you're going to get. And with me, when I tell you I will do something, I'm going to do exactly what I said I would. day one. There are 365 days in a year, 4 years in a presidential term, and 4 years in your second term. By the end of 8 years, there are going to be an awful lot of newspaper reporters and editors and journalists who check themselves into therapy. In the days that follow that first day, I will go to Congress and we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We're going to adopt common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. In the days that follow, I will direct the Federal Department of Education, which should be abolished, I will direct the Federal Department of Education to end Common Core. In the days that follow, we will rebuild our military. We will honor the commitments to our soldiers and sailors and airmen and marines and to our veterans. And we will allow our servicemen and women to exercise their right to keep and bear arms and protect themselves. What kind of administration is afraid to give guns to Marines, but wants to give a nuclear weapon to Iran? In the days that follow, we will finally secure our borders and end sanctuary cities. You know, that's one of the starkest differences in the Republican primary field. In Cleveland last week, of the Republican candidates on that stage, a majority of the candidates have publicly supported amnesty. I have never supported amnesty. I never will support amnesty, and I led the fight to kill amnesty alongside Senator Jeff Sessions. The rule of law matters. You know, in 2013, the Obama administration released to the public 104,000 criminal illegal aliens. Among those were 196 murderers, illegal aliens with homicide convictions. Among those were over 400 with sexual assault convictions. Among those were over 16,000 with drunk driving convictions. A couple of weeks ago in the Senate Judiciary Committee, we had a hearing with the head of Immigration Enforcement. Well, I asked her a couple of simple questions. I said, tell me, how many murderers did the Obama administration release yesterday? I don't know, she said. How many rapists? I don't know. How many drunk drivers? I don't know. I'll tell you right now, in a Cruz administration, the answers to those questions will be 0, 0, and 0. And in the days that come, I will work with Congress to pass fundamental tax reform to adopt a simple flat tax. American can fill out his or her taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. There are about 90,000 employees at the IRS. We need to padlock that building. Take all 90,000 and put them down on our southern border. Now, to our friends in the media, I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But if you think about it, imagine you had traveled thousands of miles in the blazing sun. You're swimming across the Rio Grande. And the first thing you see is 90,000 IRS agents. You turn around and go home too. Now some of y'all may be thinking, all of this makes sense to me. Basic common sense. Live within your means. Don't bankrupt your kids and grandkids. Follow the Constitution. But it can't happen. You know, if you listen to the Democrats, if you listen to the media, although I repeat myself, they will tell you there's nothing we can do. They want everyone here abandon hope, all ye who entered here. You know, Scripture tells us there's nothing new under the sun. I think where we are today is very, very much like the late 1970s. Late 1970s, I think the parallels between Barack Obama and Jimmy Carter are uncanny. Same failed domestic policies. Same misery, stagnation, and malaise. The same feckless and naive foreign policies. In fact, the exact same countries, Russia and Iran, openly laughing at and mocking the President of the United States. You know, the one person in America thrilled with the job Barack Obama's doing is Jimmy Carter. Now, why does that analogy give me so much hope and optimism? Because we know how that story ended. In the late 1970s and 1980, we saw a grassroots movement sweep this country. Millions of men and women came together and became the Reagan Revolution. And it didn't come from Washington. Washington despised Ronald Reagan. If you see a candidate who Washington embraces, run and hide. It came from the American people. It rose up like a tidal wave and it turned this nation around. We went from stagnation and misery to booming economic growth, to millions of people lifted out of poverty and into prosperity. We went from our hostages languishing in Iran to winning the Cold War and tearing the Berlin Wall to the ground. The reason I'm optimistic is simple. The same thing is happening again. Here in the state of Mississippi, all across this country. You know, we launched our campaign on March 23rd at Liberty University. The New York Times quickly opined, Cruz cannot win. Because the Washington elites despise him. You know, Chris, I kind of thought that was the whole point of the campaign. Listen, if you think Washington's doing just fine. If you think we need to continue in the same basic direction, just kind of fiddle around the edges, then I ain't your guy. On the other hand, if you think Washington is fundamentally broken, if you think there's a bipartisan corruption of career politicians in both parties who get in bed with lobbyists and special interests, and we need to take power out of Washington and back to we the people, that is what this campaign is all about. Well, the times went on. They said, okay, maybe the grassroots are going to be winners. But he ain't going to have any money. You know, the Washington elites, they control all that money, and all the lobbyists, they're with other Republican candidates that aren't going to rock the boat. They're going to keep that gravy train flowing. Well, a couple of weeks ago, all the campaigns filed their fundraising reports. Out of 17 Republican candidates, do you know which campaign raised the most hard money? We did! In just over 3 months, we raised $14.3 million. That came from 175,000 contributions in all 50 states. People who went online to tedcruz.org. 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 It's tedcruz.org. Our average contribution was $68. That is the power of the grassroots. I want to close with two different things. That is a nice reaction. You know, being in this business, I think every candidate lives in mortal fear that you'll be given remarks. You utter the words "in conclusion," and you get a standing ovation. So that's a much better response. I appreciate that. First thing I want to do is I want to make a very specific request of everyone here. 3 requests. Mississippi is going to play a critical role in the Republican presidential primary. We're going to start with Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. The first 3 states always have a big, big impact, and we are all in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. We've got incredible teams on the ground in all 3 states. But 10 days later, we're going to hit Super Tuesday, the so-called SEC primary. I got to say, by the way, Mississippi and Texas, we agree on just about everything. Well, except football. I'll tell you, it was even worse. 2 days ago, I was in Alabama, and someone called out a football point, and I did have the foolishness or audacity to say, you know what, if Colt McCoy hadn't been injured, we'd have whooped him. And they didn't tar and feather me. I somehow made it out of there alive.
Well, you're not perfect.
Mississippi is going to be an early March primary, and I view the role of the southern states. Together, we're going to ensure that the next Republican nominee is a strong and genuine conservative. That's the only way we win. Every time we do something else, every time we run Democrat light, we lose. So So I want to ask each of you three things. Number one, we are building a grassroots army. From the ground. Across Mississippi, across all of the SEC states, across the country. The power of we the people together, the power of us standing together is incredible. Chris is leading the effort. Keith has helped leading the effort with Chris. We've got an unbelievable leadership. But I want to ask each of you to volunteer with us, to join the effort, to take on a leadership role in your county, to take on a leadership role in your precinct, to take on a leadership role in your community. The second thing I want to ask is for everyone here today to go online to tedcruz.org and contribute. Now, some of you may be able to max out. If you can, God love you. We need the resources, and we will use them to communicate a conservative message. But everybody here can contribute something. You know, Melanie, one of our statewide leaders, knows firsthand the power of the grassroots on the ground. Everyone here can give $10 or $25 or $50. And let me tell you why it's so important. Because when you do, you're invested. You've got skin in the game. Suddenly it's not my campaign. It's your campaign. That's how we're going to win. I cannot win this race. It is beyond my capacity. But we together can and will win this race. The third thing I want to ask you to do is pick up the phone and call your friends and neighbors, call your family, call your mom, call your son, call your next door neighbor, your coworker, your college roommate. Say, listen, this election matters. It matters to me. It matters to my family. It matters to my kids and my grandkids. I'm asking you to step forward and join the team, join the fight. Each of you reaching out to your friends and loved ones has an amazing impact. That's how we're going to win. The last thing I want to say to you guys is for all of us, freedom isn't some abstract concept we read about in school. It's personal. It's real in our families. When I think about this campaign, I think about Heidi. I think about our girls, Caroline and Catherine. What kind of world are our daughters going to inherit? You know, our parents and grandparents, they gave us an America where the future was brighter, where opportunity was greater, where freedom was more expansive, where prosperity and abundance were ahead of us. The reason every one of us is here is because we're committed to doing the same thing for our children and for our grandchildren. I also think about my dad. My father, Rafael Cruz, was born in Cuba. He grew up in Cuba. And as a kid, that might be my dad calling now. As a kid, he fought the Cuban Revolution. And he was thrown in prison and tortured. He's persistent. He was tortured as a teenager by Batista's army. They beat him halfway to death. My father fled Cuba in 1957. He came to America. He was 18 years old. He couldn't speak English. He had nothing. He had $100 sewn into his underwear. His first job was washing dishes. He made 50 cents an hour. And he worked full time, paid his way through school. He and my mom went on to start a small business together. Today, my father is a pastor. He travels the nation preaching the gospel.
Amen.
Now, my whole life, my father's been my hero. But you know what I find most incredible about his story? How commonplace it is. Every one of us here, we've got a story just like that in our backgrounds. Some of us, it's us. Others, it's our parents. Others, it's our great-great-great-grandparents. What ties Americans together is we are all the children of those who risked everything for freedom. And that, I'm convinced, is the fundamental DNA of what it means to be an American. To value freedom and opportunity above all else. You ask me why I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because the men and women gathered here today. Take a look around this room. Let me ask you. Everyone under 30, please raise your hand. Take a look at this. That's the future of this state. That's the future of this country. That's what we're fighting for. I'm optimistic because just like in 1980, we are rising up together. And you know, I remember what my dad said to me over and over again when I was a boy. He used to say, when we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? That is why we're here. Because we are not prepared to go quietly into the night. We are not prepared to give up on our kids and grandkids. We are going to stand together to bring back freedom. We are going to stand together to restore the Constitution. We are going to stand as one, as we the people, to restore that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America. Thank you.